Hello and welcome to Revising for Exams in English Literature with me, Matthew Martin. This is part 2 of a series of presentations aimed particularly at my first year English students. Let's get started. Okay, part 2 is aimed at the question of exam technique. What exactly do you do once you're in the exam hall? You've done all the preparation according to the guidelines. You're as good to go as you're ever going to be, but now they're saying to you, please turn over your exam paper and you may begin. What do you do? Okay, well, you need a system. I'm going to outline my system for you. It may work for you, it may not. A good way to find out is you can always try a mock exam trial run. You do all your note-taking preparation and set aside an hour to tackle a sample question using this technique and judge the results for yourself. I'll ask poor Yorick, what should I do when I'm actually in the exam hall taking the exam? And Yorick replies, remember, tempus fugit, which means time flies. It is all about timing, okay? So here are my simple steps to exam success. They're not easy, but they're simple. First thing, take 60 seconds once you've turned over the exam paper to get over the panic of looking at the question. You're going to think the first time you see it, oh my God, I've never seen this question before, I'm doomed. You are allowed to have that feeling for exactly 60 seconds, then pick yourself up and move on. Here this student isn't moving on. They're going, it's so unfair. This question doesn't match my pre-prepared answer exactly. Now what do I do? Deep breathing, relax. You will get through this if you follow my system. Okay, so this person says, okay, panic over. I had my 60 seconds. Now I can see how this question relates, even though it uses slightly different words, it relates in some interesting ways to the themes we examined in the module. So I'm ready for it. I'm good to go. So you take your 60 seconds to get over that panic, and then you start to underline things you think are key words in the question. So here's a sample question on Orinoco. Affirben's Orinoco is a story in search of a literary genre. It can't decide whether it's trying to be a travel narrative or a fantasy romance. That's a theme we've discussed at length in class, so we should be well prepared for that. So, what key terms would you underline in that question? Okay, I would underline these. Genre. It's clearly a question about literary form. And then the two genres it lists, travel and romance. So those are going to be my key terms. Okay, I hope you picked the same. So going forward, we now create a spider diagram. Okay, I've put a little circle here and wrote genre in it because it's one of my key terms. And you can do this on a spare piece of paper in your exam script. When you're done, you just cross it out and make it clear it's not something that needs to be marked. So another circle with the word romance. You can guess what the third circle is going to say. Travel. Now, in our spider diagram, at the start of the exam, we can start to put down short notes of what ideas and what quotes connect to these key terms. So that might start to look a bit like this. We got genre, romance, travel, and then I think, oh, genre. This is about the birth of the novel. Romance, that's about things being ideal, kind of perfect characterization, you know, Orinoco Nimawinda are like the perfect hero and heroine. Oh, travel, that has to do with the kind of gritty documentary style that you get in places, all that extensive detail about Suriname. That doesn't feel like romance. That feels like the travel genre. You know, you're just thinking in any order at all. It's a bit of brainstorming. You're just coming up with ideas, and you put them all down in your spider diagram. Now, you could draw it differently. You could say I'm going to put genre in the middle and make it really clear that travel and romance are pulling genre in different directions. Yes, it's the birth of the novel, but we've got the ideal stuff on one side. We've got the gritty stuff on the other. Okay, and you just start thinking through the ideas, you think, what else makes it travel? Oh, there's kind of there's historical doubts actually about whether Aphra Behn had been in Suriname. I mean, maybe it is like travel literature in that she might actually have been there. Let's see, the birth of the novel and genre. Well, that has something to do with it being the 17th century and different reasons we have for that. Things like the printing press, travel demands for reality. The fact that people have traveled the world, people want more gritty reality in their texts. So there's links there to genre. Okay, and that's quite different from romance. I'm going to make a note about that. You see what I'm doing? I'm just putting all these ideas down in no particular order, just as they come to me. Okay? Now, what can we do with that? We can now number our spider diagram. Notice I'm putting 1, 2, and 3 in there, and I'm saying that's the order I'm going to structure my essay around. Now, your exam answer is going to have more structure to it than the student sitting next to you who has just plunged into writing. Okie doke? Okay, now, with the spider diagram and the numbering process, you are now ready to write the introductory paragraph of your exam. And look what we can do. We can actually structure it according to the way we've laid out our spider diagram. So here comes my introduction. Ian Watt, in his book, The Rise of the Novel, outlines many of the historical factors that led to the novel, social and historical factors that led to the novel becoming the dominant literary genre in the years after the Renaissance. So that's birth of the genre right there. These factors certainly help to explain why Orinoco took on the shape it did, and why it seems unable at times to make up its mind as to whether it's a fantasy romance or a gritty, realistic travel narrative. Now, I've been able to write that because I've included all the key elements. I didn't just plunge in with a random quote about Aphra Behn. Okay, this is a much better way to start your essay. Same thing with the conclusion. We now know the order that we're talking about things in. I can make sure I hit the same points in my conclusion. In conclusion, it can be seen how these elements derived from the travel literature of the day serve as a counterbalance to the clearly fantastical romantic elements of the book's central love story. Whether Aphra Behn was aware of it or not, this delicate and at times confusing balancing act led to Orinoco becoming one of the first books to establish itself as the beginning of a new literary genre, the novel. Oh my gosh, what a landing for an essay. That just comes in as if I had this all laid out in advance, but I didn't. I did it in the first 5 minutes of the hour. So there, we've come full circle. We have started by saying what we're going to argue. We've argued it point by point. We concluded by reviewing our main points. Bravo, a well-organized essay. But it all depended on those first 5 minutes of spider diagramming and numbering. Now, are you someone who often runs out of time in an exam? Let's be honest about that, because if you are, you need this method. Are you tempted sometimes to shift suddenly to bullet points at the end of your essay because you've run out of time? Do you sometimes spend an hour and a half on the one question that you feel most comfortable with and more prepared for, and then you end up scrimping on the other 1 or 2 questions depending on what kind of exam you're in? Okay, well, we're not going to do that because those things do not get you good marks. There is a solution. Okay? After you do your spider diagram and you number your points, then take this small amount of time to write out your timing precisely. So if you're doing an exam between 9:30 and 10:30, okay, from 9:30 to 9:35, you know you're going to be diagramming and numbering. So just book that into your schedule. At 9:35, say you're writing on Hamlet, you're going to get started on your first point, which is Hamlet's doubt, suspicion, all the murder, betrayal, revenge. Give yourself 10 minutes on that first point. Then give yourself another 10 minutes on the second point. Say it's about links to identity. Then another 10 minutes on the idea of how doubt relates to drama and the fact that it's self-aware as a play, who's acting, who's real. That gives us another 10 minutes. That brings us up to 5 past 10. Maybe you get a fourth point. That's going to take you from 5 past 10 to quarter past. That could be about the historical context and the Reformation. Now look what happens. At quarter past, you give yourself another 10 minutes just to reread and review and rewrite bits of what you've written. That may look like craziness, like to have 10 minutes for that, but I'm telling you, that allows you to think through what you've said again, to fix things, to add things, to just smooth out the whole thing. And then you get another 5 minutes at the end just for proofreading. Make sure you spelled Shakespeare right, check all your spelling, all that kind of stuff. Okay? And then at 10:30, you move on to the next question. Okay. Now, the reason this is great is because let's say you're working on your second point and it's getting to be about 3 minutes past 10, and you look at this and go, oh geez, I was supposed to finish at 5 to 10. I'm 8 minutes behind. You now know when you get to point 3, you are going to have to move it. You've got to move it because you've only got 7 minutes to do point 3. You got to get on to the next point. You see what I'm saying? You will not arrive to the end of the hour and suddenly discover you're out of time because you have paced yourself very precisely. Guys, I use this method. It works. Okay? And you can see, I just told you why so much time for that at the end, because that can really fill out parts of your argument. It can fix things. You find words you left out, all that stuff. It's worth the time. Now, when you're checking over your exam, yeah, you're going to check spelling, grammar, handwriting. We need to be able to read what you're writing. Leaving words out, picking the precise word, fixing that stuff. You may suddenly remember a key part of the argument that you forgot when you wrote the first draft. So what do you do then? It's fine, it's fine, it's fine. Put in an asterisk. Say, please see paragraph on page 6. And I turn to page 6. There's your paragraph. In other words, you can insert something into the essay, at the revising stage. It's fine as long as you lay out clearly where I'm supposed to go read the next bit. And in fact, when I see somebody do that, I know they've revised their work. Whereas if they just write to the end, I just think, yeah, they've not checked this over. Okay, so it's perfectly fine to add in a paragraph once you realize you've left something out. Okay, now the exam's over. You do that for 2 hours and then you come out of the exam hall. Which one of these students do you want to be coming out of the exam? Do you want to be student A, hands in the air going, yes, I nailed it? Or student B going, that was miserable. I think I just did a car crash of an exam. Which student you want to be? Do you want to be A or B? Have a think. Well, did you say A? Did you say happy student? You might want to think about that, because happy student might be happy because she's thinking this. I'm really happy because I didn't read that much, nor do I know that much about Orinoco, so I am unaware of how much more I could have said in that exam. Yay! In other words, ignorance is bliss. If you come out of the exam over the moon, I'd be a little bit concerned. Now the good news is, if you come out of the exam miserable, that's fine, okay? You might be miserable for a very good reason, and that reason is you're really unhappy because I read so much and I know so much about Orinoco that I am painfully aware of how much more I could have said in that exam. Oh dear. Well, what happens when when the exam marks come out? How do the grades work? Does happy student get an A? And does unhappy student get a C? Not necessarily. Sometimes it all switches. And that student says, I'm really pleasantly surprised with my grade. And the other one goes, oh, thought I'd done better. So what I'm saying is, once you come out of the exam hall, don't pay too much attention to how you're feeling about it, because it's not a good indicator as to how you actually did. Just go to the movies, do something, just enjoy yourself and wait for the marks to come out, okay? In any case, If you are struggling to prepare a topic or to organize your notes, drop me an email to discuss, and I'll do what I can to help. There's my email address, and every best wish for your exam. Good luck.